Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today on the channel I want to talk about three things that are top of mind for me as a prepper and why these things are going to have drastic implications on the average person. The average person has no idea that all of these things are ready to converge at once. So we're going to talk about these three stories, so stick with me. Alright, I want to first apologize for my absence. I haven't dropped a video in a few days. I've been very busy. I've been out there trying to make some videos that I think you guys are going to find pretty entertaining, or at least I was very entertained when I made them. I know the algorithm doesn't always favor this channel, but I always say I pity the man who has peaked too soon. Okay, I'm glad we haven't peaked yet on this channel. I get all these great messages of support from people saying, why isn't the channel bigger? Your channel should have millions of subs. And I'm very humbled by those comments, but I'm always striving to do better, and I'm going to take full responsibility for where the channel is at. It's my responsibility. It's nobody else's. It's not YouTube's fault. It's my fault 100%. And I'm glad that we haven't peaked yet, guys. I'm glad that you are all early adopters to this preparedness movement, this self-reliance movement, and that's exactly what it is. So let's just jump right into this, guys. Now, the first story, which is probably headline news for a lot of people, well, I don't think a lot of people care, to be honest, because it's been so incremental, but it's this U.S. inflation numbers now at 7%. Okay, I remember back, what was it, last year when it was like 2%, and some people were freaking out and some people didn't think it was a big deal and they were saying it was transitory and all the rest. They're comparing it now to back in 1981. They're saying it's a 40-year high. But what this doesn't take into account, guys, is something called technological deflation. And if you don't know what technological deflation is, it's just the natural tendency for goods and services to become cheaper over time because the mining to extract the raw materials to get those things and the manufacturing process itself becomes more efficient and cheaper to achieve. Therefore, you should expect that it may have cost so much to make a bottle of Coke back in the 80s, but it should theoretically cost a lot less now because our technology is supposed to be better. Our logistics are supposed to be better. So oftentimes we forget when we're doing these historical comparisons between these commodity prices, we forget that we're missing the deflationary inflation which is built in. So things should technically, in theory, be getting cheaper if the currency wasn't being devalued. So the US inflation rate is at its highest level in 40 years and shows no signs of slowing down. This is off a major news network. This is CBC News, okay? This is Canadian broadcast news. This is official. If they're saying it shows no sign of slowing down, then you know it's really bad. And I can tell you guys it's really bad from a distributor dealer perspective. Running a store, I can tell you that it's bad. The logistics are absolutely horrifying. Now, the next story I want to talk about is this trucker issue that we're having in the United States. There's this mandate going into place that if you don't have the thing, you're not going to be able to cross the border into the United States. Not only are we seeing major labor shortages as a result of the CRON, we're also going to now have people who are either going to be laid off or people who are just, not going to show up to work, or I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but you're going to have major staffing shortages as a result of this measure which is being put into place. Now, some people have threatened that they're going to go on strike as a result of this. Is that really going to manifest? We've seen that play out before. A lot of people can only do that for so long until many people eventually capitulate. Whether that's good or bad, of course, depends on your views of the situation. But the federal government believes that this measure will only impact 8,000 drivers. Okay, so consider that we're already having major logistical problems. And I'm talking major, even worse, I would say, than during the peak of the thing, because this thing is so transmissible and because everybody who gets it, regardless of how severe is it, has to stay home from work. As you guys know, the communist cameraman was off for about 6 days or so, and he's finally back at work. But it definitely has a huge impact, okay? And this is why I think they've reduced the quarantine time for people who've had the thing to 5 days, because I realize like this is going to totally destroy the economy, or at least in the very short term, on top of the inflation, on top of the existing logistical problems, on top of what's going on in China with cities locking down and slowing production down over there. Plus they're going into the Chinese New Year. You know, who knows what that's going to look like over there, if afterwards, you know, then they got the Olympics and all this stuff. So things are just getting absolutely crazy. Now, the story which I think is probably, I shouldn't say the most frightening, because it was frightening to me when I first heard about it, but since then it's kind of been tempered by some other information that I've received, but it's still incredibly suspicious, and not a lot of people know about this. Now, China has been stockpiling food for whatever reason, okay? Some people speculate that it's because they have a history of famine with the whole Great Leap Forward thing that happened in the 60s under Mao, where they decided to accelerate their manufacturing industry and they took all this attention away from growing food, so millions of people starved to death. The idea is that now they're stockpiling food to the tune of having 50% of the world's grain, 70% of the world's corn, and there's another staple commodity, I can't remember what it is, but all the staple commodities, they are stockpiling in mass, okay? This is significant for obvious reasons. A lot of people have speculated, oh, it's because they anticipate another outbreak of some sort. Maybe they anticipate that they're going to be going to war and they can't rely on imports from other countries, which they are currently importing from. So they're trying to build up that surplus to offset any deficits that they might have in the foreseeable future as a result of interruptions in global trade that may be due to global conflict or this thing happening again, you know, another mutation or whatever the hell. To me, that's very significant, and it's not getting a lot of media attention. Now, the critics will say and have said that this is a tendency that China has always done this, but right now it's at historically high levels, which is interesting to me. So this could not only result in some serious shortages, but we could quite possibly be on the brink of runaway inflation at some point. I mean, it could happen. This could become I don't want to say a hyperinflationary environment, but we've seen what has happened around the world, okay? If the confidence in the US dollar starts to wane, of course, people are going to start moving their money into other things. Now, what other things are they going to be moving their money into? You know, often people will talk about how the US dollar is going to be worthless and the US is going to be screwed. But guess who has the most gold? It's the United States of America. They have the most gold. They have I believe it's 9,000 tons of gold, which is more than the next 4 countries in line, which includes France, Russia, and China all combined. I believe China is 5th in terms of how much gold they possess, and they each have around 2,000 to 3,000 tons of gold. So when the US dollar finally does ultimately become completely worthless, the United States will have that to fall back on. Whatever that means for the average person, God only knows. And I'm presuming that cryptocurrency is being permitted to run on, perhaps just to give the little guy a little place to escape to, because they know everybody can't stockpile gold. You know, who knows where the gold is actually hidden? Is Fort Knox just, you know, let's not get into that story. But, you know, I mean, the gold has to be somewhere, and I'm pretty sure it's not in Fort Knox. But if it is in Fort Knox, there's a reason why it's designed such a way. There's a reason why Fort Knox is designed to mow down hundreds of zombies with the simple airdrop of some sentry support. So how this pertains to China stockpiling grain. China knows that it can't get ahead of the US in terms of gold, in terms of precious metals. It's just not going to happen. Gold has been the standard for millennia, and that's not going anywhere soon. I know a lot of crypto idealists thinks it's right around the corner, but in the 1950s, a lot of people thought that we would have robot butlers in the year 2000. Things just don't happen that fast. It's going to happen, but it's going to take a few decades probably until we're well into this dystopian whatever it is, before that actually becomes a reality. They're going to permit it and they're going to tolerate it to allow the little guy to have a place, a safe haven of some sort, to put his dollars, okay, whatever those dollars are going to be worth. Remember, Bitcoin is not really measured in gold, right? It's not measured in precious metals. For all we know, the whole thing could just still collapse. Anyways, that's a conversation that we're going to be having over on the Think Preparedness channel at some point. But all these things considered, this is why China is racing to get things that have real intrinsic value in its stockpile. So that if its own country becomes economically destabilized with all the financial woes that they have going on there right now with the real estate situation, it probably is a hedge in some way, shape, or form of preventing a revolution from fomenting. Because at some point, when people get hungry, and now that you've adapted them to have this developed world lifestyle, we'll say, people aren't going to be happy if it gets taken away and if that standard of living gets drastically reduced. So to summarize this video, inflation is through the roof, the economy is screwed, the supply chain is screwed, and it's only going to get worse. China is hoarding supplies for some reason that God only knows, and the whole Kron thing is only going to make matters worse in the coming weeks and months, possibly exponentially. And I still do think that we're going to see some pretty serious civil unrest as a result of some of the, let's just say, questionable policies which are trying to be forced through. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Stay safe and stay tuned, because this weekend we have some really cool videos coming out for you. I hope they're not squelched by the algorithm. They're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm just going to take it all in stride, because that's all we can do. We must adapt. We got to be moving targets, guys. All right, so just stay strong and stay ready. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.